Welcome to Tramlines, a podcast from Agri. I'm your host, Tony Smith, putting your questions to the experts. In this episode, I'm talking about Farm Safety Week with Petra Martin, Agri's Head of Health and Safety, and Stephanie Barclay from the Farm Safety Foundation. With fatalities increasing on our farms, our focus today is to talk about Farm Safety Week and how we can all rethink risk on our farms. So, good morning, ladies. Good morning, Petra and Stephanie.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tony.
Good morning to you. So, to start us off, Stephanie, I want to ask you straight away, what is happening in terms of farm safety stats at this time?
It's not a good story, Tony, at all. Last year, there seemed to be an improvement in the number of people losing their lives on our farms. But since April 2020, that has deteriorated somewhat and quite significantly. The figures that will be out for Farm Safety Week are likely to show a rather substantial increase in the number of people losing their lives on our farms. And I keep saying people because it's not just statistics. They are real people. They're real families, friends, communities, that have been affected by this. It's one less person at the dinner table and, on Christmas Day and things like that. So we need to be aware that no matter if there were 20 people or 34 people, it is far too many in an industry which continues to have the poorest safety record of any industry in the UK. And that's something we just need to start looking at and start addressing.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, whilst you were just talking about fatalities, I guess that doesn't talk, therefore, about actually just the number of injuries, whether they're minor or serious. That must be a pretty substantial figure as well.
Well, normally, there's an average of about 14,000 illnesses and accidents in the industry every year. And they can range from anything like respiratory illness to musculoskeletal. And, obviously we're talking about people that work outdoors every day. So that doesn't even include things like cancers and skin cancer as well. So there are an awful lot of things that can affect the industry and cause people to have a life-changing and indeed a life-ending incident.
Yeah. So we're talking about, something where we need to be focused and really change this around if we can. And so we'll talk about Farm Safety Week and what that's about and, what we can all be doing to really make that difference. But let's, while we're talking to you, Stephanie, let's hear a little bit about what you do at the Farm Safety Foundation. What is it? And tell us, what do you do?
Okay, so we're a very small charity. Petra will tell you that because she's worked with us for many, many years. We're a small charity. There are 3 of us. We cover the whole of the UK. We were basically set up to look after the physical and mental well-being of the next generation of farmers. So that is the young farmer that's making their way into the industry. So what we wanted to do was just to get them when they were young and to get them to drive those good behaviours into the industry, to show people what good looks like, to challenge poor safety behaviours that are sort of ingrained in the industry and educate them about really making the right choices for themselves. Because at the end of the day, you don't preach to a farmer. The thing is you give them a gentle reminder to look after themselves because they're so good at looking after their livestock and their land. They're just not very good at looking after themselves.
Yeah, that's a nice reflection, actually, that about looking after ourselves when we're out there working in the countryside. So tell me, Petra, when it comes to Agri, you're head of health and safety there. Why is Agri so interested and so committed to this?
I think because we all need to be. We in Agri, we've been doing an awful lot of work over the last 18 months looking at our health and safety strategy, which obviously primarily focuses on our processes and what we do internally. But we really wanted to look outward as well and look at our customer base, look at the wider agricultural community and see if there were opportunities for us to really help in that regard and use our sphere of influence to in as positive a way to really make some changes, even if they're only little small changes. And we've been doing that a lot over the last 12, 18 months, looking at our social media, like today, for instance, just really raising awareness, supporting charities such as Farm Safety Foundation and the other, the guys out there who are doing some really great work in this regard, like FCN, Wasabi. There's a whole number of them. And also by simply doing the right thing in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So making sure that we're embedding really high standards and positive health and safety practices in all of our interaction with our customers. So it's just widening our focus, because we all need to do that, not just looking at ourselves, but looking outwards as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk about where some of these accidents are happening in a minute if we can. But Petra, from an agri's perspective, I mean, obviously there are your clients, as you talk about, the farmers and growers out there that you deal with every day. But also you have staff, don't you? I mean, agronomists who are out there walking crops on their own, delivery drivers, guys working in seed dressing plants. So you've got a lot of people in your employ that are also working in our agricultural community, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. And part of what we do at Agri is very much embed ourselves in that community. Our agronomists work very, very closely with our farming customers. And all of this kind of creates this network. And when we talk about the impact of farming accidents, it's not just the immediate family, it's the community. And our agronomists feel it really hard if one of their customers, who is part of their wider family in actual fact, it hits all of us.
Yeah.
And therefore, as I say, if we've got an opportunity to do something, then we should.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is farming, isn't it? It is, we are all in the industry together. We really, really are, in whatever capacity. So let's talk about some of the stats. What is actually going on? So if we're talking about these fatalities, which is clearly very, very sad and tragic, as you said, Stephanie, but where are those accidents happening? Can you share some light on that?
Well, at the moment, it's all pointing to a split almost this year. Normally, there's usually one real reason for the accidents happening. In 2019, 2020, a third of all the fatal incidents were as a result of moving transport. This year, it seems to be an even split between vehicles, again, transport. It's the same thing, Tony, that is killing people now as was killing them 60 years ago. And that's the really, really sad thing. Nothing new has emerged. However, this year, there's a larger incidence of livestock and people you coming into contact with cattle. And unfortunately, of the around about 11 figures that there were this year, 5 of them were members of the public. Now, that is something that's unprecedented. In 2019, 2020, there were 21 in total. 1 was a member of the public, unfortunately, a 4-year-old child. However, this year, there will be 5 members of the public that will have lost their lives on UK farms. And that's terrible. The people have debated the reasons why that is. The more people using the countryside, the lack of knowledge and understanding and appreciation of actually the dangers that the countryside could hold, but also the fact that members of the public are arriving on somebody's land, thinking that it's just somewhere great to walk their dog, not realizing that's somebody's livelihood there.
So how, just on that, because I can imagine a lot of farmers saying, yeah, but that's not our fault. These members of the public are coming onto our land. So where does that responsibility lie? If, for example, we have a footpath across a field, there's some new stock in there, where does the responsibility lie? Is it with the public? Is it with the growers, the farmers?
It's absolutely a joint responsibility. And in a previous role, I used to go out and do a lot of work visiting farms and talking about farm safety and what they were doing on their individual farms. And one of the best examples that I saw about just this issue, people accessing farmland which was used for grazing cattle, instead of just putting a "Beware of livestock" sign on his gatepost where the stile went across, the farmer had put a bit of information. So he'd laminated a bit of information about what the cattle were, what the breed of cattle, what the age of the cattle, because they were young stock cattle, what they were likely to do as you walked across the field, because they were curious and they were likely to follow, what they wanted to do in terms of their dog and keeping dogs under control. And just that little bit of information made a real change to how people then acted as they walked across his land.
Yeah. So it is quite complex getting to, as you said, Stephanie, this has been debated, I'm sure, very, very thoroughly, but there is a joint responsibility. I'm really hearing that. So how can we help farmers educate the public? Let's talk about Farm Safety Week. Is that part of that communication jigsaw, so to speak?
Okay, so the key theme of Farm Safety Week this year is to rethink risk. Now, the audiences we're aiming that at are primarily the farming community, but there's a secondary audience of the general public, because there are a lot of things we want to educate the public about so that they can actually understand farmers more about how they work, how they behave, why they do what they do, whether or not that's driving along the road, to educate cycling community who are also using rural roads, who are also very vulnerable. So getting them to understand a little bit more about why a farmer does what he does at whatever particular time of the year, but also a farmer to understand a little bit more about why cyclists behave. They're not just there to get in your way. So we're doing that with members of the public this year. We're talking about actually the costs of farming safely, because a lot of people will basically turn around and say, nah, it's too expensive to do things safely. A lot of things don't cost anything, so, farm safety doesn't need to cost the earth, but actually it could cost you your life. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the risks of working when you're excessively fatigued and tired. So we're also asking farmers, what are their, suggestions for combating tiredness? Because we all know you can't turn around and tell a farmer not to do something because they're tired, because that's not viable, it's not real. So we're getting farmers to contribute what their coping mechanisms are, how do they deal with it.
And it's easy to get into a habit, and the way we do things on farm becomes easy to do, and we get into that bad habit, which is maybe not quite as safe as the longer way round, isn't it? Petra, just asking you, how are you Agri going to support Farm Safety Week? What are your thoughts?
A lot of what we do around the Farm Safety Week and during any of these awareness weeks, and the Farm Safety Foundation do the mental health week, so Mind Your Head week as well. And so a lot of it is just simply through resharing and spreading the word. And we do that both through social media and internally as well. But it's also, when we look at farm safety, and what I try and impress upon all of our teams internally, is that often when we go to a farm, we're a fresh pair of eyes, whether that's an agronomist or a delivery driver. And what happens often on farm is that you get so used to what's there that you actually don't see the risk. And so what we encourage, and certainly our delivery drivers do this really well, is they will see something and they come back to us. They don't go straight to the customer. They'll come back to us and they'll go back to the agronomist and have a conversation and say, the step to the chem store is wobbly. Now that might sound like something really, really small, but actually the customer has probably not really noticed, because it's always wobbly. But the next person who goes in, it might be our delivery driver, it might be another delivery driver, it might be whoever the sprayer operator is. Actually, just that fresh pair of eyes and feeding back information can be really crucial.
Sure. So if we're talking about the quick wins and how we can make a quick difference in terms of reducing that risk on farm, you're talking about that fresh set of eyes, noticing things and making those changes, that step going into the chemical store. What other quick wins, Stephanie, can farmers do that, isn't costly but can make a really big difference?
There's one that I keep talking about, and it's what 3 words? It's that free app that you can put on your phone, especially important for people who've got farm contractors that are there. If the contractor's on the farm, he's probably not used to things. not that many people deal on a day-to-day basis with grid lines anymore. So if you're going to be in an area, if you have the What 3 Words app on your phone, and just very briefly sort of talk anybody through it who may not know what it is, the developers have broken down the entire planet into 3 by 3 meter square grids and given each one of them a unique 3-word address. So it could be pizza, computer, dog. So if you're great at maths and you're a bit of a Brian Cox, you'll realize there are 57 trillion of them in the planet with unique 3-word addresses. So no matter if you break down on the road to your granny's house, or if you're in the middle of a field and you're working on something, if anything happens, you can call up your What 3-Word address and you'll get those 3 words. You'll be able to tell the phone operator for emergency services where you are, which means they will pinpoint you to a 3 by 3 meter square location immediately.
And Petra, of course, for your agronomists, people out in the field, it's just as applicable, isn't it? That What 3 Words can really either help you or enable you to help somebody else. So it's a great quick win. Petra, for those folk that are going onto farms, the agronomists, the delivery drivers, what would be your call to action message to them when visiting farms and the countryside?
I think it's the message is really that we can all make a difference. And it doesn't have to be something really massive. It can have, we can all make a very small difference. We can all just say something if we see something. And all of those little changes that people can make, whether it's our agronomists or one of our farming customers, little changes, if we all make little changes, if we all do little things, it creates something big. And that's really what farm safety needs right now. Stephanie said right at the beginning, it's the same things that are happening. It's the same things that are killing people. And if somebody's one little difference can make somebody stop and think and do a task differently, behave differently, recognize a risk, then that could be one less fatality, one less life-changing injury, one less family really hit by something, and one less community really hit by something. So it doesn't have to be a massive change. It's just small steps, and we will collectively get there.
Yeah, Petra, that's really clear and great advice. Stephanie, from you, what are your top tips to us all in the industry?
Well, I think the thing is, we need farm safety. We need to farm safety. It's the law. We have a moral responsibility for ourselves and our families to keep them safe. Also, there's the financial side of things. There are reasons why we need it. But the whole thing is that I'm just going to go back to our core bearing. We were set up with a strapline. Who would fill your boots? And that's the thing. You've got to think of the consequences of actually having a life-changing or a life-ending accident. Who is going to fill your boots? You're not invincible. Just because you've done it the same way for the last 40 years and haven't thought about it, doesn't mean it's not going to go wrong this time. It's not about luck. It's about actually thinking about what could go wrong and just making sure that you've got put those steps in place, to prevent that accident from happening. It doesn't have to happen. Most of those accidents out there are avoidable, so let's avoid them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remind us, when is Farm Safety Week?
Farm Safety Week is the 19th to the 23rd of July. And we want everybody to get involved. We want people to watch our video, to share their own experiences, to comment. Let's get a debate going about it, because we love a good debate. Get involved. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're very sociable. So join us.
Will do. And thank you very much, Petra and Stephanie, for a tough discussion about something that is really hard hitting on our farms and in our countryside. Thank you very much indeed for sharing that, and we look forward to Farm Safety Week. So that's it for this podcast, but do tune in again as we meet the experts throughout the season, exploring the many immediate and longer-term questions for growers and farmers in the UK. And of course, if you have any questions that you would like us to ask the experts, then email us at info@agri.co.uk. See you next time.